Welcome. Welcome to the 14th episode of the Glenmo Walk Down Broadway. As you might recall, in episode 13, we came through Tribeca. I introduced you to Cortlandt Alley, which is one of the most famous alleys with the most film credits. And we looked at the first department store, as well as where the seeds were planted for Manhattan Project. 5 years ago, when Glenn and I started doing this work, we had a very rare opportunity to go into City Hall, beautiful historic site, and we captured the episode that we're going to integrate into our story today. So I want you to roll back time 5 years, and then we'll continue into City Hall Park. So when the Dutch settled this area, this land was communal area for all to use. And then in the 1700s, it became an area where there were poorhouses and jails, there were some burial grounds, and then finally there was a competition in order to design City Hall. The grand prize to win the competition was $350. Two architects came together and they won. A French immigrant and a New Yorker. And together they designed this building in the federal style with French influence. You can see it in the arched windows and within the columns and the beauty of this unbelievable structure. Before we go upstairs to the Rotunda, I want to talk about this statue right here. This is a life-size statue of George Washington. It is one of 6 copies. This is bronze. The original is a marble statue. It was made by a sculptor named Houdin. The way he made it is he took exact measures of George Washington's body, and then he made a life mask of his head. So we are in the Rotunda of City Hall, and as I mentioned earlier about the building of this amazing structure, this is the centerpiece. When you look around at this beautiful environment, you see the cantilever, very famous cantilever staircase. It appears to be floating, but what's also 2 major facts I'd like to share is one, this amazing dome. The rosettes that are placed inside of the dome are made smaller as we rise because the perception is created in our minds that we're going much higher than we think. So it creates more depth for us and more height. So we are in the governor's room within City Hall. And this room has a strong collection of original artwork that was original to City Hall when it was first built in 1812. This table in particular is George Washington's writing table. In history, when Abraham Lincoln had been elected to become the President of the United States, he came into this room and was welcomed by thousands of people, to the point where he became so tired that he could barely shake hands. New Yorkers loved Abraham Lincoln. When he was assassinated, his coffin was put right outside this room, at the top of the Rotunda, outside the governor's room, so that New Yorkers could come and pay them respect. Of special interest in this room is this plaster replica of Thomas Jefferson, as well as that portrait of the Marquis of Lafayette. Those 2 individuals and these 2 pieces of work are very, very special. When this building or this room was first created, it was 2 courtrooms. They then created 2 chambers for the 2 parts of New York City government, getting ready for the consolidation of the boroughs into the greater New York City. Then it was renovated again in 2015 to the amazing building and room that you see now. as we come off of Broadway, I want to talk for a few seconds about William Tweed, often known, or most famously known as Boss Tweed. He was an American politician, sat in many seats, and had tremendous influence and power through his control of Tammany Hall over New York City politics. And as a result of the Tammany powerhouse, he was able to create jobs, offer jobs to his loyal voters, and also over city projects. So why are we standing on these stairs? Because in front of us is the courthouse, the most famous courthouse in Boss Tweed's life. This courthouse cost the taxpayers over 50 times what it should have cost, because the padding and the graft went back into the Tammany coffers. It was the New York Times that broke the story, but many people did not read. So it was Thomas Nast, as one of the most famous cartoonists, who created the imaging of the Tammany Hall, the bloatedness of Boss Tweed, and was able to educate or communicate to New Yorkers the tremendous wealth that was being thrown from the city as a result of the corruption. He was tried in an unfinished courtroom in this building and was convicted finally. Went to prison in 1877 and died in 1878. So thank you to Thomas Nast, who also created Santa Claus and the image of the elephant related to the GOP. Welcome back to the future. It's 5 years later, and what I'd like us to talk about is this beautiful fountain. So back in the day when City Hall Park was being developed, Mold Fountain was at its center. Along the pathway, a very famous architect, Hastings, and sculptor, McMoney's, were commissioned to build a statue in place of the fountain. So Mold Fountain was packed up, sent to the Bronx, and a very controversial statue was put in its place, called Civic Virtues. It is portrayed by a man brandishing a sword. He is standing on top of two defeated female figures that represent corruption and vice. When it was unveiled, it was very soon after women got the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. And so many felt it was a big slap in the face. In the 1940s, Fiorello LaGuardia was the mayor of New York City. He hated walking out of City Hall every day and seeing the naked bum of a male statue. So, came up with a great idea. At the time, Queensborough Hall was being developed, and what a generous mayor to be able to give civic virtue to Queens. In time, Queens wanted to get rid of civic virtue as well. And it was the president of Greenwood Cemetery who said, "Let me have the statue." And it lives there now. Unfortunately, it's falling into disrepair because nobody really wants to spend the money to put it back into its beauty. At the time when civic virtue left City Hall Park, Mold Fountain had to come back from the Bronx, yet during the move away and back, many of its beautiful structures, its lamps, had been lost. So the archivists of the municipality went back to the original ink drawings and did do a great job in replicating much of the grandeur of Mold Fountain. Across from City Hall Park is one of the most unique and beautiful skyscrapers anywhere, the F.W. Woolworth's building. Woolworth's, as a five and dime store, was opened in 1879 by F.W., who brought his brother Charles into the business within the same year. Woolworths was a unique organization, one of the most famous and profitable in the world, because it was the first time that discounted items were presented at a set price, where you didn't have to have all the haggling. Also, Woolworths was the first time that products were on shelves and people could go into the store and touch the item without the help of a sales clerk behind a counter. So with all of the success, FW made the decision to take much of the organization's profits to build this amazing neo-Gothic building. It remained one of the largest, tallest buildings in New York City until the Chrysler Building was open. So with all of its success, it had opened a division of Foot Locker. In time, all the Woolworth stores did close, and all that remained was Foot Locker. But what does truly remain is this amazing neo-Gothic building. In years past, tour groups were allowed to go into the lobby, but unfortunately that's no longer the case. So we just have to admire it from the street. So now we wrap up episode 14 of the Glenmo Walking Tour of Broadway. Today we were able to roll back time to have a unique look inside City Hall Park, in City Hall, Tweed Courthouse, and this amazing, unique skyscraper, the Woolworth building. So gratitude for watching, and thank you so much, and I can't wait to episode 15.